Big Mike Golic joining us. He was on the call last night with Westwood One, Cowboys and the Chargers, and co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network, former Mothership employee and friend of the show. Big Mike, good to talk to you, buddy. Let me start with pregame.
Yep.
Skirmish, Donnybrook, altercation. What exactly happened prior to the game between these two teams?
You know, it's one of those things that just a little kindling wood and then it flames a bigger fire. And I have to admit, I do my first hit on the field. I like going down there for pregame. And I actually had some flashback because I was one of those knuckleheads that would do something like that. So I saw the fight start and I started running over, and then I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to get my ass kicked if I go over there. I better not get too close. But, you know, the Rams, they were starting to a few of the players were over there, and that's right where the Cowboys run onto the field. And as they ran on, of course, somebody says a couple words, then some people stop, and then they're jawing at one another. Next thing you know, they're pushing one another. And it never, you know, just like most fights in the NFL, they don't lead to anything really bad. But it got chippy at the end of the half, at the field goal at the end of the half. It got a little chippy again. These teams were playing, you know, both teams were playing to stay within one of their respective division leaders.
The headline from this game should be about which team?
Well, I think it'll be about Dallas. So Dallas got their butts kicked against San Francisco, right? And I think the side of the ball that really took it to heart was the defense, because we knew this Dallas team was going to be led by their defense. And while they only had one sack, it was a Micah Parsons late sack. They had pressure. Their pressure rate was like 47%. It was great. They were getting in the face of Herbert and moving him off his mark. And I think they really took that personal to where they were considered one of the upper echelon of the NFC. And then after that loss to San Francisco, people are now saying it's San Fran, it's Philly, it's Detroit, you know, and putting Dallas with Seattle and dropping them down a rung. And I don't think they feel they belong there. Unfortunately, they're a little inconsistent, so that might be where they are right now. So I think it was more on them. This Chargers team, Dan, you look at the talent they have, and we just see they just kind of continue to underachieve.
I'm trying to figure that out because to me, I think the bigger picture is what's going on with the Chargers. Dallas is a good team. The Chargers should be a good team.
Yes.
Justin Herbert is not a good fourth quarter quarterback. And Brandon Staley feels like he's coaching for his job, and we're, 6 weeks into the season.
So here's the interesting thing, too, right, is Staley's side of the ball is defense, and the defense has not been good in the last couple of years for the Chargers. So that's been kind of a surprising thing. You have a quarterback that can air out some incredible stats, but they never seem to get it going, especially with the running game. And now Herbert had a good record now, albeit a small sampling size. He was 3-0 against top 5 pass defenses. And I think the Cowboys were either 2 or 3 against the pass. And the Cowboys had given up more passing yards from week 1 to week 5. They had given up more and more and more. So I thought, and with Herbert's record against that, they could be had a little bit in the passing game, but you have to give a lot of credit to the Cowboys defense. They stepped up in this. And what I thought was a weekend of great defensive performances, see the Jets and see the Cleveland Browns and other teams as well. But this Charger team has really been an enigma to me, Dan.
And you bring up a great point of, I want to see how many hurries you have, pressures you have, how many times you hit the quarterback. Because you can have a guy get 3 sacks and we go, oh, man, they must have got to a quarterback. I don't care as much about that as I do every single play that you're bringing pressure, you're hitting him every single play. Because after a while, the sheer accumulation of that is going to, it's going to bring down Justin Herbert and confidence, and, he's going to see people in the pocket. So I thought that was so important that Dallas had heat on him all night long.
Yeah, and I mean, it took us until the second half to even mention Micah Parsons' name. I think something was up with him because his body language, it was not good. I don't know if he was under the weather or what. But to your point, and you're right, you look at the Chargers side of it, they had 4 sacks. Morgan Fox had 2 of those sacks. But there wasn't that pressure rate that Dallas had, because it doesn't always have to be a sack. If you can get a quarterback off his mark, but these quarterbacks are a lot better nowadays getting off their mark and making throws on the run. But Herbert was just off. I mean, he was throwing behind. Keenan Allen had an out and up that was wide open. That would have been 6. And I couldn't believe that Herbert overthrew him the way he did when he was wide open. So your point is well taken. Just 1 sack, and it was late by Micah Parsons, but the constant pressure, that has a cumulative effect on a team.
Where do the Lions stand in the rankings with NFC teams right now?
So I would put them third right now. I'd put them behind San Francisco and Philadelphia, and I'd put Detroit right there, and then Dallas after that. Then you're looking at like Seattle and the Rams in another tier, but I would put Detroit there. I love what's going on. Just, when me and Mike in our show this morning, we talked to Lomas Brown, who was in my draft class in 85. He was number 6 overall, such a great guy. And he spent his first 10, 11 years in Detroit and really lived the other side of what's going on right now. And he does the radio for them now and just talks about the difference. And it starts with Dan Campbell. They always say you take on the personality of your coach. And I had said, as former players, I'm going to tell you, when Dan first had his first presser and talked about biting kneecaps and how tough they were going to be. If I was a current player on that Detroit team, I'd be going, oh man, training camp is going to be so hard. He's going to hit us and everything, but they have bought in. And when you buy in and then see the wins, you buy in even more. They're a tough team. The offense the last couple of years has put a lot of points on the board. The defense is starting to step up. So yeah, I have them right there. I mean, and they'll get a shot against, some of these top teams, during the season as well. And their goal, obviously, win the division, which I thought they could do. And then let's see how far they can go in the playoffs. But what a fun team to root for now.
He's Mike Golic, co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network. And I'm wondering about this as I'm watching last night. Mike McCarthy doesn't really – I don't get confidence from him. If I'm a Cowboy fan, what happened at the end of the first half, game management, penalties again, the last couple of years, they're up there. It just feels like Groundhog's Day with the Cowboys with Mike McCarthy.
So the word I use, and I used it last night, is inconsistency, right? You see the talent that they have, but you want to see it on a more consistent level. And you're right about the penalties. I mean, and it's not like the Chargers were innocent either. Dallas had 11, the Chargers had 9, 20 penalties. The game was just interrupted and choppy because of that. But there's no consistency with this team. Listen, you have Tony Pollard being the main back. The 2 games before this, he didn't touch the ball but 8, 9, 10 times. Now, they had a blowout win against New England and a blowout loss against San Francisco, so the running game kind of goes out the window. But last night was a good time to get it rolling again. He averaged 2 yards a carry. I mean, Dak Prescott was the leading rusher thanks to his 18-yard touchdown run, which was a nice ball fake on his part. That's the word I would use. Inconsistency with the coach, inconsistency with the quarterback, because Dak was off a bit, but when he was on, man, he was firing darts and he was moving out of the pocket and running well as well. And when he does that and that defense is on, they can be one of the better teams, but their inconsistencies and then shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, clock management times, those are all things that you can kind of get away with like they did last night in a game. But when you get to one and done in the playoffs, that's going to make you be the done part of it.
Do you think that Robert Kraft could fire Bill Belichick?
No, I think it would be one of those mutual, hey, I don't want to fire you. That's not the way I want to go. What do we think here? If push came to shove and Bill Belichick said, I'm adamant about staying, I think Kraft would have him stay. So I don't think he would fire him. But I think if he wanted him gone, there would be a long conversation about, hey, Bill, do you step away? I want you to do it on your own. I want you, I want it to look that way. But just flat out fire him, I just don't think so.
Would he allow a GM to come in?
Boy, that's the question. That is absolutely the question, because when you're as successful as that, listen, even if you're not as successful as that, we all think we're making the right decisions and don't want to be demoted in any kind of a way. And that's exactly what it would be. But the days of the head coach being the GM really are a thing of the past. There's just too much to have to keep an eye on. I think it's very difficult to do. So that would be something that maybe would happen, and I would think they'd almost try and keep it under wraps that it didn't really happen. But that is something I think, kind of like Jerry Jones when he was making all the decisions, then Steven started making the decisions. One of the ones a while ago, he wanted Johnny Manziel, and they were like, Jerry, no, let's take this guy named Zach Martin, who's a walk-in Hall of Famer. So you start to kind of shift the power of decision making, and that's something I think they could do. But everybody's got an ego. And I would imagine Bill has a pretty good size one as well, and he has the rings to prove it. So that might not go over too well, but that's certainly a thought process. That's something that maybe should happen because they have not been doing well from free agency to drafting as of late.
If the Jets are playoff eligible 8 weeks from now, and Rodgers is close, do you risk?
Listen, saying that a lot depends too on how Zach Wilson is playing. Let's say Zach is playing how we think Zach is going to play.
Good enough to get them playoff eligible.
Exactly. But Aaron Rodgers would be a much better situation. Yeah, you're taking a risk on re-injury for sure, but man, how many shots you get at the Golden Goose, right? I mean, they did what the Rams have done, what Tampa Bay has done. You sell your soul, especially the Rams did, to get the title. And the Rams got the title. They did that by signing people to contracts maybe they shouldn't have in Tampa Bay, but they got the title. The Jets are doing this to get the title. So, man, damn everything. Throw the guy in there. I know you want him for next year as well, but you have that defense right now. And if he's close enough where you don't think he's going to re-injure, you never know if that's going to happen. And as long as Zach is kind of the mediocre to a little above mediocre for the rest of the year, I don't see why you wouldn't give it a shot. I don't think, Dan, I'll say right now, I don't think there's any way that Aaron Rodgers would be ready to play in the playoffs.
He's certainly given the presentation that, hey.
You can give the presentation all you want. I mean, you can say, you can stand there and throw a ball on the sidelines because your Achilles is hurt, your shoulder isn't, so you can stand there and throw the ball. And I get modern technology is getting better and better. I do understand that. I would be so hard-pressed to think even in a quick return that he would be ready to go. I just do not see it no matter what he says.
Okay,
Aaron says a lot of things.
But why is he doing it? I mean, is it for attention that he's on the sidelines throwing the football?
Listen, Aaron, I think we all know, while I get along with Aaron, I know you get along with Aaron. Aaron does like the headlines, right? Aaron likes to talk, be seen doing football, talk outside of football, like the little battle he's getting in with Travis about the vaccines. He believes he is a smart guy. He believes he's a very smart guy, and he doesn't mind throwing it out there as well. But I also think he's a guy that does like kind of being seen out there. So that's part of it. And I don't doubt that his presence there helps a guy like Zach Wilson and helps kind of, being on the sideline, suggesting plays. I do think that could be a huge asset to the team.
Is it good that there's no great teams in the NFL?
Probably. I mean, we go through this a lot, right? Whether it's individual sport and Tiger Woods, do we want to see Tiger dominate or do we want to see him get beat? Do you want to see a dynasty in football, the Patriots? You want to see that go away, or do you want to see, them carry on? It's a great question. I'm sure if you're, any kind of a Boston fan, you want to see anything like that go on. But other than that, and I think we're getting that in college now as well. Georgia's played a couple of games where they looked like number one, but other than that, it looked like, boy, you'd love that 12-team playoff this year because there's more than a handful of teams you could believe in to do that. So I'm one of those that likes a little more parity, unless, of course, I'm playing. Then I want to be the dominant one.
I know you were at the Notre Dame USC game. Feels like we're starting to get the analysts who are coming out now and maybe cooling on Caleb, Michael Penix Jr., Drake May, Shedeur Sanders. You got to see Caleb Williams. Any concerns about him being the number one quarterback?
No. I still think he's the number one guy. His escapability is incredible. I mean, you think he's nailed back there, and he gets out and he moves on the run. The guy, he had a bad game. USC had the game Notre Dame had against Louisville, right? They just did not play well enough to win. USC didn't, and Notre Dame's defense played extremely well because neither offense in this USC Notre Dame game played well. It was Notre Dame's defense that was the story of this game. So, while Caleb had been playing better than last year when he won the Heisman, that's why I thought he could be the next back-to-back like Archie Griffin, though Penix has taken over the betting favorite, and certainly after this game he will. But no, I'm not going to go on this one game and say, Caleb Williams isn't the number one pick in the draft.
Good to visit with you. My best to the family. Thank you again, Mike, for getting up with us.
You got it, Dan. Anytime, buddy.
That's Mike Golic, co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network. And he was on the Call Westwood One broadcast last night, Cowboys and the Chargers.